Imagine waking up on a perfectly normal Tuesday. The sun is shining, your coffee tastes exactly the way you like it, and the world outside your window is humming along at its usual comfortable pace. But then, you glance at the calendar, or perhaps your phone screen lights up with that first, overly enthusiastic notification, and instantly, a heavy, familiar dread settles right at the base of your stomach. It is your birthday. For a lot of people, this is the cue to pop confetti and revel in a designated 24 hours of main character energy. But for you, and for a surprisingly large silent percentage of the population, the anniversary of your birth feels less like a celebration and more like an emotional audit. You might find yourself wanting to turn off your phone, close the blinds, and fast forward through the next 24 hours just to get to the safety of the day after. If this sounds like you have probably been called a cynic, a Grinch, or simply difficult to please. You might even feel a deep sense of guilt for not being able to just enjoy the day like everyone else seems to. But what if I told you that hating your birthday has absolutely nothing to do with being a pessimist, and everything to do with how your brain processes attention, time, and emotional expectations? Today, we're going to dive deep into the fascinating psychology of people who genuinely dislike their birthdays. We are going to unpack the hidden mechanisms of the mind that turn a day of cake and balloons into a psychological minefield. And let me show you why this resistance is actually a sign of deep emotional complexity. Let us start with the most immediate trigger, the sudden, blinding glare of the social spotlight. Humans are inherently social creatures. Yes, but we are also highly sensitive to the dynamics of attention. In psychology, there is a concept known as the spotlight effect, which is the phenomenon where we tend to believe we are being noticed and evaluated by others much more than we actually are. On a normal day, this can cause mild social anxiety. But on your birthday, the spotlight isn't an illusion. It is entirely real. Suddenly, you are the focal point. Friends, family, co-workers, and even vague acquaintances from high school who saw a notification on social media are suddenly directing their energy toward you. For highly sensitive people, or those who naturally lean toward introversion, this sudden influx of directed attention feels incredibly dysregulating to the nervous system. It feels less like love and more like a performance demand. You are expected to perform happiness, to perform gratitude, to react to gifts and messages with exactly the right pitch of enthusiasm. Your brain, which usually operates on a comfortable baseline of observing the world, is suddenly forced onto a brightly lit stage without a script. This forced performance creates what psychologists call emotional labor. You are no longer just existing. You are managing the emotional states of everyone around you, making sure they feel good about making you feel good. It is exhausting. If you find yourself wanting to hide on your birthday, your brain isn't rejecting love. It is trying to protect you from sensory and emotional overload. But the discomfort goes much deeper than just the pressure of social attention. Birthdays act as what behavioral psychologists call temporal landmarks. Just like New Year's Eve or the start of a new school year, a birthday is a psychological boundary line that separates the past from the future. It forces us to pause and look at the passage of time. And while that sounds wonderfully reflective in theory, in practice, it often summons the ultimate internal critic. When that temporal landmark arrives, it acts as a mirror, and the reflection we see isn't always the one we want. Your brain automatically begins to measure the gap between your actual self, who you are right now, where you are in your career, your relationships, your personal growth, and your ideal self, the person you thought you would be by this specific age. This is where the heavy existential dread creeps in. Society loves to attach arbitrary deadlines to our lives. We are told we should have a certain career by 25, be married by 30, have it all figured out by 40. When your birthday rolls around, it serves as an annual performance review with these societal expectations. If there is a wide gap between where you are and where you subconsciously feel you should be, the brain interprets this discrepancy as a failure. It triggers feelings of grief, regret, and anxiety. You aren't just turning a year older, You are mourning the unfulfilled potential of the year that just passed. You are grieving the ghost ships of the lives you didn't choose. So, when you feel that wave of sadness blowing out the candles, it is not because you are ungrateful for another year of life. It is because your brain is currently processing the heavy, complex grief of the passage of time. To understand this even further, we have to look back at how our earliest blueprints for celebration were drawn. Our childhood experiences cast a remarkably long shadow over our adult emotional landscape, and birthdays are no exception. Think about what a birthday is fundamentally supposed to be. A day where your existence is validated and celebrated unconditionally by your primary caregivers. For a child, a birthday is a profound test of their worth in the eyes of their family. But what if those early birthdays were consistently disappointing? What if your family couldn't afford the things you wanted, leaving you feeling like a burden? What if the day was hijacked by family drama, turning your special day into a battleground for adult conflicts? Or what if, perhaps worst of all, your birthday was simply forgotten or ignored? When a child experiences consistent disappointment on a day that society promises will be magical, the brain has to adapt to protect itself. It learns a very specific, deeply ingrained lesson. Hoping for joy on this day is dangerous because it leads to the pain of letdown. So, the psyche develops a defense mechanism. It lowers the baseline of expectations to zero. It decides that if you do not care about your birthday, if you actively reject the idea of celebrating, you can never be disappointed again. Fast forward to adulthood, and that protective shield is still fiercely active. When someone tries to surprise you with a cake or plan a party, your nervous system perceives it as a threat. It whispers, "Remember what happened last time we got our hopes up?" The hostility you might feel toward your own birthday is often just the echo of a younger version of yourself, fiercely guarding their own heart against the possibility of being forgotten or let down one more time. There is also the intricate psychology of reciprocity and worthiness. Receiving requires a profound level of vulnerability. When someone gives you a gift, plans a dinner, or goes out of their way to make you feel special, it requires you to be completely open to receiving love and resources without having done anything to earn them, other than simply being born. For individuals who struggle with imposter syndrome, low self-esteem, or a deeply ingrained belief that their worth is tied strictly to their productivity and what they can do for others, receiving unconditional celebration feels fundamentally wrong. It feels like an error in the system. If you are used to being the giver, the caretaker, the one who solves everyone else's problems, suddenly being seated on the receiving end can induce genuine panic. The brain frantically searches for the catch. The invisible ledger of social reciprocity is opened, and you suddenly feel a crushing debt. How will I ever repay this kindness? What if I am not actually as good a person as they think I am? This cognitive dissonance, the clash between the external validation of the celebration and the internal lack of self-worth, creates intense psychological friction. The easiest way to resolve that friction is to simply cancel the event, to avoid the day, to brush off the well-wishes. By hating your birthday, you protect yourself from the uncomfortable vulnerability of having to accept that you might just be worthy of love simply for existing. We also cannot ignore the strange, artificial nature of forced emotional states. Society dictates that on your birthday, you must be happy. It is the one day of the year where negative emotions are practically illegal. But human emotions do not operate on a calendar schedule. You cannot command the brain to release dopamine and serotonin just because the Earth completed another rotation around the sun. If you happen to be going through a period of depression, dealing with burnout, grieving a loss, or simply feeling a bit emotionally flat, the societal mandate to be joyful creates a jarring contrast. It is a phenomenon similar to the depression many feel during the holiday season. The brighter and louder the forced cheer around you, the darker and more isolated your own internal struggles feel. When everyone is telling you to have a happy birthday, and you physically and emotionally cannot access happiness, it breeds a secondary emotion, guilt. You feel guilty for bringing down the mood, guilty for not appreciating your friends, guilty for being defective. This toxic cocktail of forced positivity and internal guilt is more than enough to make anyone despise the day entirely. So, where does this leave you? If your birthday fills you with dread, what are you supposed to do with all of this psychological insight? The first and most crucial step is radical self-compassion. The society we live in thrives on a one-size-fits-all model of happiness, but the human psyche is infinitely more nuanced than a greeting card. Hating your birthday does not make you broken. It does not make you a miserable person. It means you are highly observant. It means you have a complex relationship with the passage of time. It means you value authenticity over forced performance, and you are deeply protective of your own emotional boundaries. It is a sign of a rich, internal world that refuses to be simplified for the sake of a party. The secret to surviving, and perhaps even reclaiming your birthday, is to strip away the societal script entirely. You have to fire the internal auditor and give yourself permission to rewrite the rules of engagement. If the spotlight effect drains you, take the day completely off the grid. Turn off the notifications, disable the alerts, and spend the day entirely alone with a good book or a long walk. If the temporal landmark brings up grief, allow yourself to actually grieve. Use the day not as a celebration, but as a quiet, solemn moment of reflection. Journal about the ghost ships, acknowledge the things that didn't go right this year, and hold space for your own complex humanity. If receiving makes you uncomfortable, celebrate by giving. Volunteer, donate to a cause, or spend the day doing things for others. Redirecting the energy outward can completely alleviate the pressure of the spotlight. Your birthday is, at its core, simply a marker of your ongoing survival in a beautiful, chaotic, and often difficult world. How you choose to acknowledge that survival is entirely up to you. It can be loud and crowded, or it can be silent, solitary, and deeply mundane. By understanding the psychology behind your birthday blues, you take the power back. You realize that the anxiety isn't a flaw in your character, but a perfectly logical response from a brain that is trying to navigate expectations, time, and vulnerability. The next time that date rolls around on the calendar, you do not have to force a smile. You can simply exhale, acknowledge the complex machinery of your own mind, and let the day be exactly what you need it to be, even if that means treating it just like any perfectly normal, beautifully quiet Tuesday. Take a moment today to reflect on how you genuinely want to spend your time, free from the expectations of everyone else. Think about what brings you peace, rather than what brings you applause. I would love to hear your thoughts on this down below. How do you handle your birthday? Have you found a way to celebrate, or not celebrate, that finally feels authentic to you? Let's talk about it in the comments. And if this deep dive into the hidden workings of the mind resonated with you, consider subscribing and joining us for more explorations into why we do the things we do. Until next time, take care of yourself, and remember that it is always okay to rewrite the script.